The Compassionate Care Act. My name is Jill Swing, and I am the president and founder of SC Compassionate Care Alliance. We are an education organization here in South Carolina. And for many of you who have followed this story for a very long time, I think back, how many of us can remember where we were 10 years ago? Well, where I was 10 years ago is right here in this State House, trying to get a law to provide medical cannabis for patients like my daughter, who was suffering from severe epilepsy, passed here in South Carolina. So in 10 years, I've met dozens, if not hundreds, of other patients who also are suffering from various conditions. One thing I wanted to touch on very briefly, in 2016, our bill sponsor, Senator Tom Davis, shared patient stories on the Senate floor, and what I have in these two stacks is a representation of some of pictures, images of some of those patients and whose stories he shared. The pictures on my left are those that, as far as I'm aware, are still living. The stack on the right are images of patients who have passed away waiting for medical cannabis to be legalized in the state of South Carolina. And if you look at these pictures, many of them are children. So it is time to stop the suffering. It is time to allow patient access to medical cannabis in South Carolina. The Senate has passed this bill twice, and here we are back from spring break, and it's time for the House to move this bill forward so that we can finally get this program up and running. And I just appreciate everyone here being here today, and I'm going to start with Senator Tom Davis, who's the bill sponsor.
Well, thank you, Jill. And it has been 10 years I've been working on this legislation, but that's good. And over the 10 years, we have made this bill very, very tight. It is something that a physician and a patient is at the center of. In order for a patient to access cannabis, a physician has to diagnose that patient with a certain medical illness. The physician has to conclude that cannabis can be a benefit, and then a pharmacist has to dispense that cannabis to the patient. It is the most conservative, tightly regulated medical cannabis bill in the country. 39 other states have already authorized physicians to provide this relief for patients. South Carolina needs to become the 40th state. We're already seeing Congress acknowledging the states have the right to legislate in this area. They've given the go-ahead to states and telling them to put together medical cannabis programs. Physicians want it. Patients want it. This is something we need to do. We hear a lot of talk about medical freedom in the General Assembly. We hear a lot of talk about how a physician and a patient ought to define that relationship, and that politicians and the law should not interfere with that. This is a classic example of the law and politicians interfering with what a physician and a patient thinks is in that patient's best interest. This bill is about medical freedom. It is beyond question now that cannabis can be of therapeutic value. The National Academy of Sciences says that there is conclusive proof that it can help with neurological disorders, pain management, and many other things. So there's no question whatsoever that cannabis has therapeutic uses. There's no question whatsoever that this bill is responsible and is a safe way for patients to get access to cannabis. I urge the House to take this up in committee. The Senate passed this bill 2 months ago, and the bill has been sitting in a House committee idle with no hearings whatsoever for the past 2 months. That is not fair to the people of South Carolina. That is not fair to the patients in South Carolina. We deserve to have a hearing on this bill in the House, get it to the House floor, and put it up for a vote before the House. We'll live with the results. Thank you all very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Gil Gatch. I'm a representative from Summerville, South Carolina, and the reason why I am here this morning is, believe it or not, of all of the issues that I get pulled aside at different events to be talked about and walked through with my constituents, this is the number one issue. I was at a recent fundraiser for a sheriff in Dorchester County who was running for sheriff, and I had several people say, hey, will you please support medical cannabis? My daughter, my granddaughter, my spouse, they're suffering from this thing or the other thing, MS, Parkinson's, glaucoma. There's so many things that are happening in people's lives that are really a huge burden on not only the people who are suffering from the ailment, but also their family members who see them in pain and their heart breaks, and they want to be able to step in and do something. And I believe that this medical cannabis bill would be the next step in helping them get the relief that they so desperately need. I know there's a lot of, this is an emotionally charged issue, right? And I know that the General Assembly cares deeply about their citizens. And I just hope, and I know that I'm standing for this for Somerville, and I am asking my colleagues as well that we can try to move this down the road so that we can get those people who are suffering and their family members who are watching them suffer, and they're suffering as well, the relief that they need. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Bustos from District 112. I'm a veteran, actually a retiree, and my wife is a cancer survivor. And I believe this is another tool that the medical community can use to provide comfort for those people who are suffering from those ailments. So I'm very pleased to say that I support this, and I look forward to it going to the House floor and being passed. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Tashika Curtis Pugh. I am the Executive Director of the South Carolina Nurses Association, where we represent 80,000 nurses that serve here in South Carolina. Not only does the South Carolina Nurses Association stand behind this bill, but the American Nurses Association has put out a position statement which actively supports patients' rights to legally and safely use cannabis and related cannabinoids for the therapeutic symptom management, as well as the nurses' promotion of the quality of life for patients using these therapies. Some of the benefits of medical cannabis include controlling vomiting during cancer patients' chemotherapy, reducing pain for patients who have nerve issues, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis, to name a few. The reduction of muscle spasms in patients with MS and spastic diseases. Also, the treatment of insomnia for patients who are struggling to sleep. It also can help with the control of epileptic seizures. ANA has not only supported medical cannabis use, but has also created a new medical specialty for nurses as a cannabis nurse. But I want to take a second to move beyond the facts, to talk about myself as a hospice nurse who takes care of patients today, in settings where patients are in pain, where patients are struggling, and patients are trying to find some way to get relief. One of my most recent patients was 43 years old and was a mother of a 7-year-old. During that time, she was in so much pain, she was unable to think clearly, to make decisions about what would happen to her child after the end of her life. No patient deserves to struggle in that way. No family member should have to watch their family member struggle and be in pain in that way. I urge our House to pass the Compassionate Care Bill because it's not just a bill, it's not just a piece of legislation. This is true compassion for the people of our state, and it allows them to live their lives in pain management and hopefully pain-free. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Bundrick. I'm a licensed pharmacist here in South Carolina. I graduated from the University of South Carolina College of Pharmacy. I'm a big advocate of medical cannabis. It gives pharmacists another tool in our belt. A lot of the prescriptions that we sell now, they're synthetic compounds, have a lot of side effects. This is true plant-based medicine that we're excited to explore. A lot of companies that I'm working with now are doing FDA studies showing how these compounds can help, and we can prove through the FDA process, which is a very expensive and detailed process to get a drug approved through the FDA. But that's where it's heading. It's headed to medical white papers, research, so that we can, show all the benefits that we know are happening from this plant. We're working on things like palliative care, hospice, PTSD, pain management. If you look at the opioid epidemic in this country, this again is just a great way that we can reduce this and help save lives. And again, you can trust it from a medical point of view. It's coming from your doctor, just as you visit a pharmacy today and we dispense medications from a licensed physician, it will be the same type process where your physician will make that diagnosis and the pharmacist will counsel you on it, provide you with the medication just like you're used to now. So again, we urge for this bill to be passed, and pharmacists are really excited about this option to have in our tool chest. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Candace Carroll, and I'm the State Director with Americans for Prosperity here in South Carolina. At Americans for Prosperity, we work every day to remove the barriers that inhibit individuals from realizing their version of the American dream, whatever that might mean for them and for their families. We have been staunch supporters of the Compassionate Care Act over the past few years because we believe that we should truly empower the patient-physician relationship, and this, as has been mentioned by previous speakers, is another tool in the tool belt to do just that. It is time to stop the status quo in South Carolina, time to be innovative in the healthcare space, time to provide relief for patients who are suffering from epilepsy, from cancer, from PTSD, and like a kiddo like mine who suffers from autism, something that she will live with her entire life, who can benefit from the efficacies of medical cannabis. So as this bill is in the House, we look forward to working with House members on its passage out of committee and onto the House floor, and truly benefiting patients all across the state of South Carolina. Thank you for your time.
Hello, y'all. My name is Matthew Nichols. I'm the former political director of the South Carolina Republican Party. Guys, I was a freshman in college when 9/11 happened. I watched the towers go down in my dorm room. And that day I went down to the Marine recruiting station. I joined the Marine Corps. I'm proud of my service. I'm proud I served in the infantry for 8 years. And I'm very, very proud of that, guys. But I'm no hero, not even close. But tonight I'm going to be at dinner with a lot of heroes. I'm talking about guys that have spent the last 20 years defending this country. Multiple combat deployments, PTSD, injuries, things you can't even imagine. And tonight at dinner, they're going to ask me, just like they always do, Matt, what's going on with medical cannabis in South Carolina? What's happening? Is this the year that South Carolina is going to give us the freedom that we're asking for, the freedom that we've been begging for almost a decade? And I'm extraordinarily disheartened, because what I have to tell those guys tonight is, I don't know. Maybe this will be the year. Maybe. The Senate has passed this legislation. It deserves a hearing in the House, and it deserves a vote on the floor. And I implore the General Assembly to do those things. But I won't stop fighting for this bill. I won't stop fighting for those veterans, because I know this medicine saves lives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carlton Walker. I'm the Republican nominee for District 15. That's North Charleston, Hannah, Goose Creek. I have two stories to tell. One is my mom's boss, Buck Limehouse, who passed away in 2022. He's the first Secretary of Transportation for the state of South Carolina. Also, my sister Elizabeth, that passed away in 2012 from cancer. And as far as Buck goes, everyone that went to his service at the Citadel or went to the little small church next to his plantation remember the story of his pastor talking about how he'd sit in the back of the church. He was in severe pain. And so the one issue I'd like to bring up is my sister's last few weeks of her life on this planet in 2012. My mom, who is the controller for Limehouse Properties, had to go to the black market to get medical cannabis for my sister for the last few weeks. So the idea is we need to end the black market, because it's kind of like the prohibition in the 1920s. When we had prohibition on alcohol, there were more deaths from alcohol poisoning because you didn't know if you got rubbing alcohol put in your drink or gasoline. So if we could get rid of the black market, so people like my mom, you know, they don't have to go to a black market to help their children in this type of crisis. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that one. And Dr. Block, I met with him down in Miami. He's the foremost expert that wrote the bill and wrote the laws in Florida. And this is something that we definitely need to pass in South Carolina. Thank you.
My name is David Newsom. I am the Director of Operations for Harmony Brand CBD and also a father of a special needs child and a veteran. So as I serve this country in special operations deployments all over the world with many of my friends and brothers and sisters in the military, I fought for this country to come home to all kinds of things that you deal with when you leave that deployments and things like that. Also, when my daughter was born, she was diagnosed with a rare genetic brain disorder, and for years I watched the seizures try to take her life from us. We were fortunate enough to start using CBD oil and start manufacturing and producing it, my wife and I, to save her life. We took seizures that were 200 to 300 a day and reduced those down to 2 or 3 a month. She was on 7 pharmaceutical medications and ended up only being on 1. She was supposed to pass when she was 5 to 7 years old. She's now 15. Cannabis has saved her life, but as she turns and goes on through hormonal changes and things like that, she's going to require different cannabinoids that are not legal in the state of South Carolina. And she will need those things in order to survive, which means if she cannot get those, we will have to be medical refugees, basically, and move to another state, and that would provide those things for her. And this is our home. So much like many of the veterans that have populated this state, because South Carolina has one of the largest veteran populations per capita in the entire United States. Several of my friends who call South Carolina home have had to leave the state to seek cannabis treatment because the pharmaceuticals are not helping with their physical demons nor their mental demons. 22 veterans, over 20 veterans a day commit suicide based on these types of things, not able to get the proper treatments and help that they need. It's time that we, as a state, provide treatments that can help these people, our veterans and our families with special needs people and people who are under the care of doctors who can't get these things, who could benefit and help to live a better quality of life. And it's been nearly a decade that we've been fighting for this. And I think that, especially I say this for many of the veterans, we're tired of fighting. We're done. Allow us to come home. Please let us have this. And please let the quality of life improve for every citizen in the state of South Carolina that can benefit from this. Thank you.
So in summary, as you can see, we had a diverse group of people here speaking, imploring the House to take up this piece of legislation. And so we just appreciate the press for being here today. Do you all have any questions?
Jill, for you,
yeah.
Obviously, you have been here year after year fighting for this stuff. Does it get to the point where it's just frustrating that the same thing keeps happening? It passes through the Senate, and then it sits in the House or it dies in the House, and you have to come back the next year and they start the fight?
Well, yes, of course it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, my daughter was 6 when we started she's 16 now. So this is well over half of her life that I've been trying to get legal access to this medication that I know works for her. So of course it's frustrating. I have an educational organization, and I think the key to this is education. The challenge I think in the House is that every 2 years they're up for re-election. So every 2 years there's a turnover. So, we invest the time and the energy in educating a lot of these lawmakers, and either they don't run for office or they don't get reelected. So every 2 years we have a new group of lawmakers that we have to educate. And I really think that once these lawmakers hear the personal stories, hear from our veterans, and hear from the medical professionals that this really is a viable medication that can be of benefit, I think that they understand the importance and the need for this in our state. But like I said, we don't always have the same lawmakers coming back every 2 years. So it's like, we 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I think that we have an opportunity to make this happen this year in the House and get it done, and finally start creating this program so that patients can finally have legal access.
Randall want to answer. I'll let you take this.
No, not specifically, but to give some hope, it was landmark that it passed the Senate 2 years ago. And this is just a step in the process, and I commend Jill Swing, AFP, everybody that's been involved I've been here a decade, and they have been working on it for a decade. So I think there is an opportunity that it can pass this year. Certainly, I support and will do my part to ensure that happens, the opportunity that it can. But the good thing is, just like any bill, this has progressed and it continues to progress to the point that it passed the Senate and we did not have a huge reaction to it, that we know that it's safe and going to pass the Senate in future years as well. So I hope my colleagues understand that. I hope that they know that Senator Davis has been a champion for this for a decade, and I know he'll continue to fight for it. So for me, as far as medical access to it, I think that it's important for us to address this year, hopefully.
Any thoughts? No, covered it. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. What's up, man? I was aviation bus.
Way up.
Nice, man. Nice. I was the captain. You know how I became my own Marine. Stands for my eyes. Navy equipment.